My name is Monty. I'm from Distash. It's a pleasure to have actress and author Sheetal Sheth. How are you, Sheetal, today?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Pleasure. 15th of August, around then, we had Raksha Bandhan, and we also had the release of Raashi's Rakhi. Can you explain where that particular idea came from and why release a children's book based on Raksha Bandhan in the United States?
Yes, well, it's available all over the world. For me, as I've had kids, it's about kind of rethinking and reframing a lot of the traditions that I grew up kind of not questioning, because you don't question, especially when you're a first generation with strong immigrant parents who have very particular ideas about what they want you to kind of practice. And, I always kind of felt like I had questions. I didn't have the answers of them when I was growing up. And then when I had my own kids, there was a number of things that kept coming up. And I thought, wait, why am I doing this? I'm not even sure I believe this. And I really wanted to be thoughtful about the things that I bring into my home with my kids. Raksha Bandhan is something I love. I've always practiced it. I love the sentiment of it, the sentiment of kind of having each other's backs. I have a brother. I have many people in my life that I consider familial. And I love that it was always about family, the ones you were born into and chosen family. And so it always troubled me that women wouldn't get the Rakhis back. And when I started looking into it and questioning it, I thought to myself, wait, this is man-made once again. There's a lot of these things. And the idea came from this idea of sisters kind of tying on these Rakhis to protect their brothers as they went off into the world. And women weren't expected to go out into the world. So we would get a gift, a little pat on the head, maybe some money or whatever, but that was kind of it. And I thought, no. I have two girls and I want them to practice this, and I want them to always know that they have each other's backs. We have people in our lives that also we would want to kind of express that sentiment to basically anyone you love. I have so many friends with two boys or two girls or many, many different kind of variations of that, and we should all be able to practice it. And so that's where the idea came. I feel like a lot of us have been doing this in our own way over the years. And it's funny, I go into a lot of schools and I've talked to many educators, many people from different cultures who also feel that way about their own traditions. And so I just thought, why not have a book that maybe inspires and gives kids permission to ask questions, number one, which is
Absolutely.
I think really important. And number two, change things if they're not working for you. It doesn't mean that you have to say goodbye to the piece of your culture that maybe you don't connect to, but you can reframe it in a way that feels right to you and actually stay very connected. So it's really about bringing more people into it as opposed to discarding parts of your culture that you may not connect to value-wise.
Absolutely. So the book is not just for children. It's obviously for adults as well, for the parents to explain these answers for families to these questions.
Yes.
Any Raksha Bandhan incident that you can remember from your household that kind of comes to your mind, especially when you were writing this particular book?
I just thought about all of my friends who were saying to me, I wish there was a way that we could redo this or reframe it. And it wasn't just about Raksha Bandhan, it was about a number of different traditions and customs that I think we all practice, that when you think about it, you realize, oh my God, this is so silly. Why am I doing this? For example, there's one that comes up with women all the time in this idea. We were raised to believe that you can't go into the temple if you're on your period.
Correct.
And it was this really silly. And by the way, I was terrified because it was put into my mind. And then you're told, okay, if you take a shower, wear new clothes or whatever, some nonsense about when you are okay enough to go. And I thought to myself, geez, come on, And so I think there are a lot of things like that. And by the way, there's still times when I go into the temple and that voice in your head, it doesn't leave you. And you have to make it quieter because it's such silliness. And again, man-made. And we shouldn't let it stop us from living the lives that we want to live.
As first gen or second gen South Asians, let's say Indians primarily, because we're talking about Raksha Bandhan, do you feel that the culture that is currently in India is still understood as the culture that we believe it to be outside of India?
I think, I remember going to India as a child for 2 to 3 months at a time every couple of years. And I vividly remember them having limited television access. This is before the internet.
Sure.
And I think they had 2 channels. And then they started getting a little bit of Western programming. And the 2 shows were Baywatch and The Bold and Beautiful. And I remember my cousins thinking, is that what you live like? I'm like, no, I don't live like The Bold and Beautiful or Baywatch, but that was all they had, right? And so slowly, as I think the internet came into all of our lives and the world has now opened up for everybody, I think that India has really been allowed to, again, progress in a way that I think everyone has always wanted to. But sometimes you need the thing to show you, or you need the thing to be like, oh, I can do it that way, or oh, they're doing it like that over there, to kind of push it a little bit further. So I think with the rise of the internet and the world becoming so small, I think India is rapidly changing. And when I go back to India now, in my last probably 10 years, I find it to be even more westernized than I am by any means. In fact, I meet people and I'm like, wow, I'm more Indian than traditionally than some of the people that I meet there. So I think there's a bit of, the nice thing is there's something for everyone, and you should, again, whatever feels right for you, be able to do. And so what's nice is I think India, a country that I am so connected to and go back to all the time and I love, is able to be all the things, because I think there's issues in our country, there's issues in India, there's issues in all the countries. And I think women in particular, as we've seen what's happening in India, which is unacceptable in terms of the violence against women, I think what's nice about it is now they have allies and they have people that they can talk to that can hopefully support in these fights that really are significant and life-changing in terms of what's happening there.
Well, for a second, let's get back to the bandhan of Raksha that Raashi ties and creates as well in the book. I just wanted to kind of set the premise on how Raashi kind of overcomes the aspect of what we're discussing over here, and from creating Rakhis, I believe, to, if you can take that away.
So she's always made Rakhis. That's also one of the reasons why I love this festival, is it's very DIY. And I'm all about as much as you can do yourself. Sustainability, projects that involve families and kids is so fun, and keeping people kind of occupied with really cool things. And so Raashi has always made her own Rakhis. So that was something that was already existing before this particular premise in this book. But the piece of it is, in the beginning of the book, it's her favorite festival. Her brother, in his mischievous way, kind of is like, you have to do things for me. It's Raksha Bandhan. And she's like, says who? And he says Raksha Bandhan. And that's kind of the light bulb moment where she said, wait, what? Why don't I get it back? And so she asked her mom, who, by the way, in the book is a single mom. And it's very, very particular. I specifically put that in there because I don't think we see single moms portrayed in South Asian culture at all. And so you see her mom, she asked her mom a lot of questions, and her mom, tells her the history, and Raashi doesn't feel like finishing her breakfast, and she goes up to her room and she takes it in and is thinking about it and looking at this wall that she has of all the things that she imagines and wants to do in her life, and thinks, I want to do things too. I want to go out into the world. Not only does my brother get to do this, I get to do this. And she has an idea. And so cut to the festival later, when it finally, I don't want to give away what happens with her brother there. There's an instance that happens, and he realizes that he actually does want to tie one onto her because of what happens. And then it becomes this big hubbub, as generally happens when you question something that is so ingrained. And thankfully, she has made plenty of Rakhis for everyone. So
lovely. And I believe you have 2 children, 2 daughters, I believe. Is that
I have
correct?
2 daughters, yes.
Anything in particular that you, in a way, teach them, let them understand about their culture, our culture per se, which is of both parts of the world, and what you think that mothers and families should kind of be aware of within this generation of the world?
I think let them ask the questions, and if you don't know the answers, find them together. I think it's so important.
Beautiful,
to just encourage that thoughtfulness. And I know when I was growing up, also my parents didn't have the privilege of time and energy, frankly. I don't have a lot of time either, but I'm putting the energy into this because it is something that I'm really trying to be more thoughtful about. My parents, as immigrants, were just trying to get through the day. There were no Indian stores. My mom is literally making dal from like crushing peas. So life was very different, whereas now you can just go buy some, And so I think our privilege of having more access to things sometimes can get in the way of the more traditional hands-on everyday. And so I try to be really thoughtful about keeping those things in. And I do think with each generation, things get lost a little bit more. So what can you keep? And so I welcome their questions. I don't have a lot of the answers, but we try to figure them out. I tell them that Nana Nani may not have the answers, but they always say they do. And there's a lot of questions they ask me that they say, well, so-and-so says they know. I said, that's their thought. That's not a fact. And especially when it comes to religion, I think that's something that I particularly want them to find on their own. So much to their chagrin, I don't make them do anything. I really want them to be exposed to all the things. And I hope that they find whatever they believe in on their own. And so they're like, well, what do you believe in? What does Daddy believe in? And we on purpose say, we're not going to share that. I want you to figure that on your own. So I think just nurturing that curiosity in a way that I hope that never ends, because I think it can serve us all, continuing to kind of that critical thinking skill, which I think in a world where there is so much misinformation is more important than ever.
Take us back a little bit. Who is Anjali? Where did she come from? And take us to the crux of this beautiful, adorable little girl.
Thank you. Anjali is kind of what I like to say, our 2.0 version of our Indian American experience here. I feel like, I started in this business over 30 years ago, and there are lots of narratives still about the kind of first generation experience, which I was. I would like to get past that. I'm very much about kind of what is it like for me as someone who's born and raised here, having kids here, which I find really interesting in this idea of like figuring out what to bring, what to leave, how to combine it all, what that means for us raising kids here. But who are, parents who are quite thoughtful about wanting to make sure we don't lose any of our culture. And so Anjali is the epitome of that. Anjali is somebody who loves who she is. She embraces it. Whereas someone like me, not speaking for everyone, I'll just speak for myself. When I was growing up, I felt like I had a double life. I felt like I had my friends, my Indian friends and my non-Indian friends, and there were different things we did together. Anjali is not that. Anjali is everything that we all, I think, want to be, which is a full embodiment of everything that she is, including where she comes from. And so her kind of navigation is slice of life stories. And so I really wanted to create a character that was like what our children would be. And so she really does come from amalgamation from my kids, my friends' kids, things that I hear on buses, things that I hear on subways, things that I hear from friends. And now that I have so many books out, people are sending me stories, people are sending me so many little bits and pieces, they all end up in the books. And so she really is kind of what I wish I had growing up. And speaking specifically about her and her books, she has very big feelings. And in each of the books, you see that come out in very different ways. In this book, Anjali Can, if you want to get into the story of it, the community center is closing down. And she's upset, of course, and says, well, what about this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And everyone in her life keeps saying, well, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. It's already done. But she realizes she can. And so it's really based on all the amazing kids I see that realize that they can vote in lots of different ways. They can change in their community. The local piece of like, what can you do in your world is something I'm really like, is something that I like to champion. And so that is what it's at the crux of this book, is what you can do, the power of one, and what the ripple effect it looks like.
Talk to me about the family dynamics a little bit, not just the kids, but also the parents with the children. And coming as as Indian parents, sometimes you are told not to do certain things. Here, I don't think there is that.
There is. I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff I put subtly in the vision, because these books are obviously illustrated.
Yes.
That I like to put subtly. Some people get them or they don't. For example, you will see in these books that her father is the primary homemaker, and it's nothing spoken about, but you see him in the kitchen. You see him with the rag on on his shoulder. You see him kind of serving the dinner. So those are things that I've purposefully wanted to show. Again, different dynamics and different family structures and the way things are happening. But yes, I really wanted it to be a family of support, and what it would look like if a child had that, she's gonna, what I believe in this idea of like, I am not a bulldozer parent. I am not a helicopter parent. I am not one, a bulldozer parent is a parent that removes all obstacles in front of their kids. I don't believe that that's the way to raise kids. I want them to make mistakes. I want them to develop resiliency. I want them to fall so they know how to get up, because life is like that. And so how do you do that? And it's letting them find their way in a way that allows them to not, maybe it work. I mean, as you see in the book, it doesn't work out quite the way she wanted right away. And what do you do in those moments? And you see that moment with her mom where she says, these things matter. The little things add up to the big things, even if it isn't happening for you right now. And I think that to me is what I try to bring to my kids, and this idea of things are not going to be easy, and they shouldn't be, nor do I want your life to be.
Talking about illustrations, they're absolutely beautiful. They soak you in, especially the full spread with the entire protest happening at the community center. Save the community center. There are so many little intricacies, like even in the windows, and then with the lights, people doing different things. I'm sorry, I forget her name, but with your illustrator,
Soto is the illustrator.
Lucia Soto. With how was that back and forth, and how did you come together from text to visuals, or visuals to text?
Yeah, well, we start with the words in this case. Lucia Soto is beyond brilliant. We do have a bit of a shorthand now because we've worked on a couple books together. She knows Anjali. I trust her implicitly. So now when I write something and she sees it, she gets it. But there is, there is a back and forth from ideation to sketches before it goes to color. Not just me, but my editor and other people on the publishing team give notes. And so there is a back and forth. But I will say, you don't need to tell her much. Lucia gets it. She is really good. And she's really great. What I think she's great at is the details and the expression. I think it's really hard to draw faces. She not only gets faces, but she gets the expressions of every character, not just Anjali, in a way that I'm just like, oh, I'm feeling that. And I often, when I give notes, I just write, yes, yay. I mean, it's like just exclamation points in caps where I'm like, more of this, amazing. There's a lot of that when I'm seeing the original ideas.
Right. Okay. Dynamic duo, Sheetal, Lucia, and Anjali. Okay. Couple of questions before I do let you go. Raksha Bandhan, we spoke about Raashi, I believe, and now we have a protest happening through this young soul that Anjali is. Massive topics per se, and topics of importance. How do you kind of break it down for a children's book, and how do you find that subtle meaning behind such a larger implication of like a protest and going to authorities and saving pretty much your community? How do you simplify that?
I think you distill everything down. I don't think there's anything you can't talk to kids about. Obviously, you find the right language, but you find that piece that brings you the story, right? And so, for example, with Raashi's Rakhis, it was interesting. I was just in schools these last few weeks, and you connect it to something happening in their real life. So Raashi's Rakhis is all about this girl who decides to reimagine a tradition in a way that connects to her values in her life. So it was right after Thanksgiving, and I asked the class, who here did not eat a turkey? Who here maybe didn't have the kind of traditional Thanksgiving? And then I said, who here doesn't have a Christmas tree? Who here will not have a Christmas tree? Who here celebrates in another way? Why don't we share how we do things? And so it's really about finding the thing that they will connect to, because that book is more about giving permission to do things in a way that connects with your values than Raksha Bandhan or anything else. And so how do you take any of the messages? Anjali Can is about what you can do when everyone tells you can't, and you realizing how powerful you are, and that you, even as one person, is really the Greta Thunberg story. You see that picture of her alone, and then look at what she did, And so I think, and as I'm going to be going on a book tour starting next year, I want to center those stories of the amazing, of like, look what started with one. And I think those are the ways to connect. I mean, I always tell the story, my now 10-year-old, when she was in second grade, You find the thing they care about. She is obsessed with desserts. And so in second grade, she would come home and complain because she was at a school that only gave sugar-based desserts on Fridays. The rest of the days were fruit. And on the days that they didn't have school on Fridays, she wouldn't get dessert and she would be very upset. She'd come home complaining on the holidays and the long weekends and whatever. And I said, well, what are you going to do about it? And she just looked at me. And she's like, well, what can I do? I'm like, you tell me, what can you do? I'm like, do you have a problem?
You can.
With that? Yes. Well, who would you talk to? I don't know. And so again, it's just about prompting. And so I just said to her, okay, can I talk to my teacher? I said, yeah, what do you want to say? So she wrote out the points. She was in second grade. So, it's again, depending on what age it is, you guide them more or less. I wrote to her teacher and I said, listen, Ember's feeling this way. She has a few thoughts about why and what she thinks could be different. Her teacher was amazing. She was like, oh my God, I love this. Have her come to class, present it. The rest of the kids were like, you know what? I agree. And her teacher facilitated a school-wide petition. Anyone could get involved. It was amazing. Everyone's like, you know what? You're right. Why don't we get that dessert whatever day if we're not going to have school on Friday? Went to the principal. I mean, it was such a great lesson in if you care about it, do something about it. It could be anything. It could be, I don't like the uniforms of my baseball team. It's like, I don't like that there's a garden here. It's like, I don't like that we don't compost. Whatever it is, then figure it out, right? So it may seem silly that it's a dessert thing, but it found my daughter something to care about. And then she got it. And that sense of accomplishment that she made that change, she will never forget.
And there's an Anjali in all of us. This has become nonfiction now. This has become reality. This is lovely. Okay, you mentioned a book tour. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I am going to be going to many cities. The book comes out, Anjali Can comes out January 14th. It will be available. It's available now for pre-order. It's available wherever books are sold. We are going to be doing a big launch in New York. Then I'm going to Toronto. I will be going to Chicago. I'll be going to LA and San Francisco, Austin, Dallas, Massachusetts, Miami's in the works. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening. But yes, I will be coming to a city near you, and I hope to see any of you, all of you.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sheetal, for your time. And Anjali, wherever you are, thank you so much as well. This was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.